So Xbox last week held their developer direct where they showed a slate of games that'll be coming out in 2024. And honestly, I thought all those games looked crazy dope, y'all. But given that we're a horror channel over here, there's one game in particular that I wanted to focus on, and that's Senua Saga Hellblade 2. So I'm sure you saw the title and the thumbnail, and you're probably thinking, come on now. Game of the year? Yes, bruh. Game of the year. And really, I wanted to break down, because honestly, y'all, I thought the presentation was fire. I thought everything they showed about the game was fire. I thought the way the developers walked through and talked about the game was dope. So I felt like I had to make a video about this, and I just feel like everything they showed just really showed me that this game has the potential to be game of the year. But what I wanted to do is focus on 4 categories, right? And kind of break down what they showed. And these 4 categories that we'll be talking about are the story, the visuals, the audio, and then the gameplay. And we'll kind of explore those. And I'm going to use examples from this developer direct. And I feel like after y'all put everything together, man, I'm telling you, I feel like you might agree with me that this game has the potential to be game of the year for 2024. Now, before we dive into that, of course, I want to go over the details for Senua Saga Hellblade 2.
From our cinematic scenes to our puzzle solving, everything is crafted in service of Senua's journey, a journey that you can embark on May 21st.
Finally. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time. We finally got the release date for Hellblade 2, y'all. It's coming out on May 21st. That's my birthday month, so you already know that's going to be a cop. But it's coming out on Xbox Series X and S, of course. But it's also coming to PC via Windows and Steam. And it will, of course, be on Game Pass, which I think means it will also be able to be played via the cloud. Now, some people may not have seen it, but they did a article after the developer direct or I think it was over on Xbox Wire, where they gave some additional details about the game. And one interesting thing here was they talked about the price of the game, and they mentioned that one, it's going to be digital only, and that it's going to be retail at $49.99 US. That's US dollars. And that's very interesting. And I think one of the big things for that price point is the length of the game. So they reiterated, I think multiple times in this developer direct, that this is a short narrative experience, very much like the first game. So I thought it was kind of cool that they are kind of equating the price to the amount of content that you're getting. Obviously, this is a very highly produced game. You see the production value and all the footage and the audio and the music and all that. So, but I feel like the fact that it's not 70 lets us know that we can expect, in terms of like length and content, what the first game gave us. Probably Hellblade 2 will give us the same as well. And then, I'm sorry to all the people who love physical media. Unfortunately, this is a digital only release. And I feel like that just helps keep the cost down so they can give us that $50 price point. And personally, I buy everything digital at this point now anyway, so I'm cool with it. But I know it sucks for y'all who love physical media.
And the team is working hard to bring you an unforgettable journey into Senua's unique world and her battle for survival, where we have once again combined high fidelity and immersive presentation with a shorter, narrative-led experience that focuses on the things that we really care about.
Now, again, Ninja Theory mentioned multiple times in that developer direct that this game is a short, narrative-driven cinematic gaming experience. And I feel like if you're narrative-driven, then you got to have a dope story. So let's talk about the story elements that they presented in that developer direct. Now, they gave us the setting and where this game will take place, right? They mentioned that this game will take place in 10th century Iceland, and Senua's hot on the heels of the Vikings. They raided her village. She tracked them down to Iceland. She's going on a hunt. Y'all, she's ready to scrap. But they also mentioned that in the wake of all this chaos that the Vikings are causing, the Draugr are out raiding villages as well. And that's who we mostly see in the gameplay combat components of footage in the developer direct, is her fighting these Draugr enemies. Now the developers also mentioned that this is a more confident Senua. They kind of mentioned that she's grown to accept the voices in her head and the visions that she sees. So I feel like we're going to get Senua that probably has a better communication with the voices in her head and the Furies, and is just more confident and takes ownership of the psychosis and actually has a better meld with it. So it's going to be interesting, I think, story-wise, for Hellblade 2. Now, Ninja Theory also mentioned that we will, of course, encounter enemy and ally characters throughout the game. They actually showed a segment in this developer direct where you see Senua sitting in what looks like a hut of some sort, and she's talking to another character. And the character, I can't remember 100% what the character says, but they're having what looks to be an in-depth conversation. Like maybe they're breaking bread and going over their experiences. And I feel like I think later on in that developer direct, you actually see Senua following that same character in like this dope ass looking vista in Iceland. But I think it's going to be interesting that it seems like we're gonna have an even heavier focus on other characters that Senua encounters as well, driving home that fact of that cinematic gaming experience. Now, I've already mentioned that Ninja Theory talked about this being a shorter experience, much like the first game. And if you look over on How Long to Beat for the first game, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, it seems like most people are averaging around 7 hours to complete that game. So I have a strong suspicion that this game, Senua Saga Hellblade 2, will be around that same time frame. You may even want to give or take an hour, especially because they're really driving home this fact of it being a shorter cinematic gaming experience. So it makes me think it might even be slightly shorter than 7 hours. Now, for me, I'm cool with that, right? Because look, people got lives, right? Like we don't, at least for me personally, I don't have the time to sit down always to play a 20 plus hour game. And I'm one of those people that I would much prefer a tighter, focused, narrative driven game that clocks in around 7 hours and use that 7 hours to tell a very complete story with no bloat whatsoever, rather than play like some of these Assassin's Creed games where there's like a shit ton of bloat and a bunch of side quests and a bunch of meaningless stuff, right? That they added in just to like fluff up the game to make it feel bigger than it really is. But a lot of it is very empty side quests that don't really contribute a whole lot. So I will take that 7 hour game over a bloated 20 plus hour game any day of the week. Now, when I was thinking about this, it actually reminded me of something funny. So I believe it was in the early days of the PS4, but there's this game that came out called The Order 1886. Now, me personally, I was actually a fan of this game. I thought this game was dope as hell. And it was very much one of these cinematic, narrative-driven gaming experiences. And at the time, I remember people just shitting all over this game. And I think it was one of the main criticisms was that it was a shorter game. But for me, I'm a big fan of that cinematic experience, man. And I think this game even had like the letterbox bars for the widescreen on there to really like drive home that cinematic feeling. And for me as a movie lover, like I was like, man, this shit is hard. You know what I'm saying, like I was a big fan of it, but I know everybody wasn't. But I had to mention that because it popped into my head. I was like, yo, remember The Order? That was kind of like in this vein. Maybe that game came too early. If maybe it would have came out now, people would have been on board. Maybe it would have been a little bit cheaper if it had a digital only type of drop. But I kind of would love to see that game make a return. Maybe like a sequel or something like that. Let me know if y'all are fans of The Order 1886. I can't be the only one that liked that game. But let me know down in the comments below if y'all are also a fan of that game. But all in all, y'all, I think we are definitely in for a treat with the story of Hellblade 2. You heard a lot from the developers in the developer direct about Senua's growth and how she's going to continue to grow within this game. We're going to get even more story about her, as well as encountering some new faces to add to the team. We're going to be talking about diving deeper into the background of Senua and her struggle and her acceptance, and her also she's on the trail of these Vikings, so also like the vengeance story aspect. Like I think this is going to be a very powerful and moving story. You could definitely get that sense when you're watching this direct, because the developers are really talking about having a very gripping and engaging story, one that you can connect with and relate to, or maybe even have someone in your life that you may have that may experience some of these psychosis elements. And I think all in all, this is going to be a very powerful story, y'all. And I honestly think we're in for a treat. And I can't wait to experience the story.
And you see a scene or you see a small section of the game and you're like, yeah, that works. That's amazing.
Next, y'all, that we got to talk about those visuals, because goddamn, y'all, them visuals was crazy. Like some of those shots look real. I was like, yo, this game visuals, like the graphics this is like some truly next gen shit. You know what I'm saying? But of course, we got just breathtaking visuals in this developer direct. One of the things they showed and they mentioned, I think it was already mentioned before, but I feel like we got even further look at it in this direct. They talked about how they had the reference footage from Iceland, like they went there and they got a chance to actually shoot with drones and that type of stuff. I think they did some photogrammetry stuff as well to really give it this authentic and real feeling of Iceland within the game. And you could just tell just from looking at these different clips, and you see that a lot in this direct where they show a lot of just similar walking clips, because the the landscape and the visuals is the only word you can really use is breathtaking. Because I was just like watching this, my mouth was open, like damn, like these visuals is unlike anything I've ever seen. Now, also with the visuals, we even got some very like horror-esque visuals, like that part when all the Draugrs were piling up on Senua, she's sitting there screaming, and just everything has this really just super lifelike, realistic feel to it in the visual department. And it's almost like unsettling, man. I think watching this and seeing some of that beautiful animation work, it's almost gonna probably feel a little weird because it's gonna feel so real that you could feel like you're playing a movie and like this shit is really happening. I think the horror elements with this level of visual fidelity is about to go crazy. You know, one of the things that Ninja Theory mentioned, I think also in the Xbox Wire article that came out after the Direct, was that when they originally were making the first Hellblade, they were an independent studio, and they called that first game independent AAA because they were trying to go for that very high production value, but coming out of an indie studio. But now they've been bought by Microsoft, by Xbox. They're part of Xbox Game Studios, and they got all that money behind them. And they mentioned that Xbox has allowed them to maintain the heart of an indie studio, but have the financial backing to go ham in the production value department. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here, which is why we're having just these insane visuals, unlike anything we've ever seen. And I'm sitting there watching some of these clips, and especially after they put out the 4K clips for the Developer Direct. And I was like, honestly, I think that this might be the best looking game we have seen in this newer generation of consoles. Y'all let me know down in the comments below if you're kind of feeling like I'm feeling, if this is at that level of like, this could be like the generation defining game where like this is like top notch graphics, next gen graphics, unlike anything we've ever seen. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on that below.
Senua experiences reality differently, and a part of this manifests in the voices she hears.
She will collapse. She will collapse.
These voices come to life through binaural audio.
Let's talk about the audio, y'all, because audio was a very big thing with the first game. That's a lot of the talk that surrounded the first game, right? Because Senua is a character that was experiencing psychosis, so she's hearing voices. And one of the big things with the first game was the binaural, I can never say that word right, but the binaural like voices and how you can hear the voices on, sometimes one voice is on this side, another voice on this side, and you're hearing them kind of at the same time. That was one of the unique experiences about the first game. And they mentioned that for Hellblade 2, that they did bring back the professor who helped them work with the psychosis experiences, as well as with people who have actually experienced the psychosis, to really dial in the idea of what hearing voices in your head would sound like. And that was a big part of the first game, and now we're dialing it up to like 100 with this game, y'all, in the audio department. So let's talk about some of the audio things that they mentioned in this Developer Direct. So now I talked about the voices being binaural from the first game, and that is again present in this game. But one thing that they mentioned was, unlike the first game, right, where only the voices were binaural, well, in Hellblade 2, everything is binaural or has the potential to be binaural. They mentioned that it's going to be the full 3D spatial sound for this game. So you will be hearing all types of stuff all around you, really placing you like in the position of Senua. And so it'll have very emphasized directional hearing on the headphones, and playing on the Xbox or on the PC, having like the Dolby Atmos headphones settings and all that good stuff. I think this is going to make for a crazy ass audio experience, probably even surpassing what the first game had. I think this is going to dial it up on a whole different level, y'all. So get your headphones and stuff ready. Get the Dolby Atmos licensing key thing for the app on the Xbox if that's what you're playing on, because I think this audio experience is going to be crazy, y'all. Now, they also talked about the music in the game, and now we already got confirmation from the Game Awards that they're working with Heilung on the music. Of course, Heilung was present at the Game Awards to actually perform live some of the music from the Hellblade game. We saw that same music getting played throughout the Hellblade 2 Developer Direct, and it was that I'm talking about. That junk fire. You admit it, that junk's hard. They also mentioned that they're also working with a heavy metal singer as well as throat singers as well, to kind of add to the overall authenticity of the time period as well as with the vibe of the game. And I think between Heilung, heavy metal singer, throat singer, I think the soundtrack for this game is about to go stupid hard, y'all. Like, I think that this might be one of those games you pick up the soundtracks. I think it's going to be very good. And when you combine that with the story, and I think it's going to have a lot of heavy, emotional, and moving pieces, I think this is going to make for incredible soundtrack and composition experience. Lastly, we got to talk about the gameplay.
We have all new combat for the sequel. One of our key goals was the ability to actually tell a story.
This game has been talked about for years, and there's a long period of time where we hadn't seen any combat gameplay. We finally got the gameplay at the Game Awards, and then they talked about it and showed more here in the Developer Direct. So one of the things that they mentioned was that this is a all new combat system, so it's a little bit different for the first game, and they basically took the combat system from the first game and dialed it up like by 1,000. One of the big things that they mentioned was they wanted every fight to feel super engaging and gritty and brutal and visceral and gripping. And they basically said that they wanted to make you feel like after every fight, like you barely survived, like you barely made it through it, like you really was scrapping, like you was really going through trying to survive in these fights. And you could definitely get the sense of that in the gameplay, right? Like the fights look very weighty, like they got a lot of weight to the movement and the animation. So it's gonna be a very like in your face, visceral survival type of combat. Now, kind of briefly mention the animations in the visual part of this video, but I got to mention the animations again within the gameplay component, because I feel like it adds to the immersiveness, right? When you just got amazing animation. So of course we saw beautiful animations throughout, and I thought the animations within the combat looked amazing, from like the finishers when she stabbed old buddy in the neck. But one of the hardest moments, y'all, was when that Draugr jumped on her back, and it looked like it tried to it bit her neck, and she like threw it off. And after she threw it off, she like reached onto her neck and like looked like to see if it wounded her and she was bleeding. Like it's the small details like that with the animations that really make you feel like you're like they're saying, right, like you're playing a cinematic experience. Like when I saw that, it was, you know what it reminded me of? Y'all remember when they were first revealing the first division, and it was that long ass gameplay segment, right? And the main character, old dude, went up on the police car, right? And he was taking cover. They got into the gunfight, and the police car door was like slightly opened, and he was in the cover system behind the police car. And as he moved along it, he like closed the door on the police car. And remember how people was going crazy over animation? Like, oh shit, this shit is next gen. Like seeing that part with Hellblade 2, that's how it made me feel when she reached on her neck and was like, yo, am I bleeding? Like Rush Hour. That's what it made me think of. And I felt like that really told me like the level of detail that Ninja Theory is going to make you really immersed and make this feel like a real life like experience, especially within the combat. And that adds to the visceral and brutality, survival-esque aspect of the combat that they're going for. Now, some of the aspects of the combat that we got to see was, of course, the dodging. So we saw her juke. We saw her juke the fire the dude was spitting out. We also saw her do a parry. The dude came down with a big, I think it was like a mace hammer looking thing. She parried that. And then, of course, we got to see some just amazing animations with finishing, like some brutal ass finishing moves that looked really, really good. I think all in all, that's going to be the recipe for the combat. So the dodging, the parries, and then just some like just brutal like combos and finishing moves that I think, combining with the visuals and the animations, I'm telling y'all, man, I feel like this is going to be the feeling of this combat, I think, is going to be unlike anything we've ever felt with combat. I think it's going to have like a crazy like weight and feel to it. And I think just watching it isn't enough to really get that sense. But I think when we're actually playing it and holding the control in our hand, we're actually fighting. Like, I think we're going to feel like what they're trying to convey with that, like that brutal, like I barely survive aspect with these fights. And I wonder how many different types of combos they have. Cause we saw the one where she kind of, I don't know, I'm assuming it might've been a finishing move, how she stabbed dude at the bottom of the stomach and slid it up. Like, I wonder how many different types of finishing moves they're going to have in this game. But from the little bit we've saw so far, like, that shit just looks amazing, y'all. Now, another aspect to the gameplay, this is outside of combat that they mentioned, of course, and this is returning from the first Hellblade, of course, is puzzle solving. Now, we didn't really get to see like no real gameplay with the puzzle solving. We got to see some different instances of like reality changing. We saw her walking, and then like the kind of walkway got blocked by, and then kind of changed to red and got blocked by some trees. We saw some floating objects. Obviously, beautiful animations and visual fidelity, but we didn't get to actually see any puzzle solving related gameplay. I'm going to assume they're kind of saving that to leave to the actual experience and not spoiling any of the puzzles. I'd be curious to see if they've done any new and unique things with the puzzles. I'd be cool with another trailer where they show more of that aspect along. We've seen the game, we've seen the combat, we've seen the crazy, amazing visuals, the animations. Now we know a lot about the audio and the music. Show some of that puzzle solving. If that's a big aspect of this game, which they did mention it in the direct, I want to see some more of that the puzzle solving. But that is a part of Hellblade 2, and they did mention that in the direct. But all in all, y'all, combining puzzles and combat and all that, I think that they've already mentioned that everything is going to be in service to the story, and I think that the puzzles and the gameplay will all have weight to it that impact the story to make everything feel like intimate in a way. And all in all, I think the gameplay is going to be very tight, focused, and honestly be very fun, but very engaging and rewarding as well. But with that, that's exactly why I think Senua Saga Hellblade 2 has the potential to be Game of the Year for 2024, y'all. And Ninja Theory also mentioned that, hey, look, if you're a fan of Hellblade 1, or maybe you're just a fan of narrative-driven games in general, they mentioned that in that direct, that this game was made for you. It was made for the fans of Hellblade 1 and then fans of narrative-driven cinematic gaming experiences. I think it definitely showed in this developer direct. But y'all let me know what your hype level is right now for Senua Saga Hellblade 2. And hey, look, are you think what I'm thinking? Do you think it's got Game of the Year potential, or maybe you don't? Let me know why you might not be on the same page. Let me know if you're not even looking forward to this at all. Maybe this isn't your type of game. But if it's not, let me know what games you are looking forward to in 2024. Because honestly, 2024 is looking kind of like a stacked year right now, both for movies and games. 2024 is about to go crazy, I think. But if you made it this far into the video, man, look, I appreciate y'all for watching this video in totality. Make sure you like this video, you share it, and look, y'all subscribe to join in the conversation and to stay up to date on all things horror. I'm AJ. Until next time, peace.